Our story begins in 2002, in a quiet town somewhere in the United States, a place where very little ever happened that required the attention of the police, until one morning, when a 911 call led officers to a small house in a quiet neighborhood. Inside the living room was the body of a young woman. Her name was Sarah. She was only 23 years old. Welcome to WhisperFiles. Make yourself comfortable. Tonight's case begins here. Sarah had recently finished her studies and was working as a legal assistant. People who knew her described her as a quiet young woman. She had never caused any serious trouble. She had no known enemies, and nothing in her life suggested that anyone would want her dead. Her body had been discovered that morning by her father, Robert. He was 58 years old and worked at a local gas station. After the death of his wife, Sarah was the only family he had left, and now she was dead. The initial examination of the scene revealed that Sarah had suffered a severe blow to the head, but that wasn't what killed her. The cause of death was strangulation. Someone had used a thin object to strangle her, but the object was nowhere to be found. There were no signs of forced entry. The windows were closed. The door had not been broken. Nothing valuable appeared to be missing, and a search of the house revealed nothing that could immediately lead police to the killer. Whoever had killed Sarah had most likely entered the house without having to force their way inside. The case was assigned to Detective James, 45 years old, an experienced investigator who had learned over the years that at a crime scene, sometimes what matters most isn't what you see, it's what you don't. The investigation began with the people closest to Sarah, and the first was Adam, her 25-year-old boyfriend. Adam didn't have a steady job. He worked different, temporary jobs wherever he could find them, and was in a considerably worse financial position than Sarah. But according to the people who knew them, the two seemed happy together. There was one problem. Adam was the last known person to have seen Sarah alive. The previous night, they had gone out together. According to Adam, they spent a few hours out before he drove Sarah back home. He left her there and returned to his own apartment. He had to work the following morning, so as he told James, he went straight to bed. But no one could confirm that. During questioning, Adam insisted that his relationship with Sarah was good. They hadn't argued that night. There was no other man in her life, and he couldn't think of anyone who would want to hurt her. At first, his answers seemed honest, until James began asking about Sarah's plans for the future. Then something changed. Adam began avoiding certain questions. His answers became shorter, and sometimes he needed several seconds before answering. James looked at him. "Adam, what are you hiding?" Adam insisted that he wasn't hiding anything important, but James didn't believe him. And for the first time in the investigation, it was a real suspect. James then spoke with Robert. The picture was completely different. Robert was visibly devastated. He said that the previous night, he had finished his shift at the gas station and gone straight home. The following morning, he tried to contact Sarah. When she didn't answer, he went to her house, and that's where he found her. Robert also had no one who could confirm where he had been throughout the night, but nothing about his behavior made James believe that he was looking at a killer. Robert didn't accuse Adam. He didn't try to point the investigation toward anyone. He didn't suggest a suspect. He asked for only one thing: find whoever did this. For the next several days, the investigation focused mainly on Adam. He had no real alibi, and James was now certain that he was hiding something. But there was a problem. There was no evidence connecting him to the murder. James decided to return to Sarah's house, this time alone. He walked through the living room again. He looked at the furniture, the objects, the place where Sarah's body had been found. And then he noticed something that had been overlooked during the initial search. A corded telephone sat near the place where Sarah had been found. James moved closer and carefully examined the cord. In one small section, the outer surface had been damaged. A tiny tire, almost impossible to notice unless you knew what you were looking for. The telephone still worked normally. That was why no one had paid any attention to the cord. But James began to suspect something. Maybe the object they had been searching for had never left the crime scene. Maybe it had been right in front of them from the beginning. But the discovery answered only one question: how Sarah had been killed. It didn't answer the most important one: who had done it. James decided to stop looking only at the night of the murder. He began looking into Sarah's life. He spoke with people from her workplace, friends and acquaintances, people from the neighborhood. Almost everyone told him the same thing. Sarah was quiet. She had no serious problems with anyone. Her relationship with Adam seemed good, and everyone believed that she was very close to her father. Until James knocked on the door of the house next door. At first, the woman who lived there had nothing unusual to tell him. She had seen Adam many times. She had also seen Robert visiting his daughter. Everything seemed normal. But just before their conversation ended, she remembered something. Robert often visited Sarah late at night. And on some of those nights, the neighbor had heard raised voices. Not between Sarah and Adam, between Sarah and her father. James asked if she knew what they had been arguing about. She didn't. But she remembered one sentence she had once heard Sarah shout: "You can't keep deciding my life for me." For the first time, the image of the perfect relationship between Sarah and Robert began to change. But it still wasn't enough. Families argue. Fathers and daughters disagree. None of that meant Robert had killed Sarah. And James still had another man who was lying to him: Adam. The investigation continued, and eventually, James discovered something Sarah and Adam hadn't told anyone. 2 plane tickets. Sarah, Adam, destination: Seattle. Both tickets were one-way. There were no return tickets. James thought he had finally discovered what Adam had been hiding. He called him in again. This time, Adam didn't try to deny it. He and Sarah had been planning to leave, not for a vacation, for good. Adam had found a steady job in Seattle. Sarah wanted to leave the town and begin a new life with him. And there was a reason they hadn't told anyone, or at least almost anyone. Sarah wanted to get away from her father. Adam revealed to James that Sarah and Robert's relationship wasn't what it appeared to be. Robert loved his daughter, but as she grew older, that love had slowly turned into control. He disapproved of many of her choices, and, more than anything, he disapproved of Adam. He believed that a man without a steady job or financial security couldn't give Sarah the future she deserved. But Sarah had made her decision. She was leaving. And then James realized something. Until that moment, he'd been searching for someone who had a reason to want Sarah dead. Maybe he should have been looking for someone who had a reason not to let her leave. Robert was called in for questioning again. This time, James didn't treat him like a father who had lost his daughter. He treated him like a suspect. He asked Robert again about their relationship. Robert insisted that it had been good. Then James told him about the neighbor, the late-night visits, the arguments. Robert admitted they had disagreements from time to time. Nothing more. And then James placed the 2 plane tickets in front of him. For several seconds, Robert said nothing. James asked him if he knew Sarah had been planning to leave. Robert stared at the tickets, and the image of the devastated father slowly began to collapse. Eventually, he spoke. He knew. Sarah had told him about the plan shortly before her death, and that night, Robert hadn't gone straight home after work. He had gone to Sarah's house. At first, he tried to convince her to change her mind. He told her she was making a mistake, that Adam couldn't give her stability, that she had studied, that she had a good job, that she was throwing her life away for someone who hadn't even managed to build his own. But Sarah refused to back down. She told him that Adam had already found a job in Seattle, that they had made their decision, and that this time, she wasn't asking for his permission. The argument became more intense. Sarah told him she wanted to live her own life, that she was tired of him making decisions for her, and that, in just a few days, she would be gone. Robert lost control. He pushed her. Sarah fell and hit her head hard. For a few moments, she lay on the floor, dazed. Robert could still have stopped. He could have called for help. He could have walked away. He didn't. Consumed by anger, he grabbed the telephone cord. A short time later, Sarah was dead. Robert left the house. He returned to his own home, and the following morning he came back. This time as the father who supposedly had just discovered his daughter's body. The case was finally solved. Robert confessed to Sarah's murder. And Adam, the man who, for much of the investigation, seemed to be hiding something dark, had only been hiding a plan that could never happen the way they had imagined. Sometime later, Adam boarded a plane alone. Destination, Seattle. Waiting for him, there was the job he had found, a new home, and a new life. It was the life they had planned to begin together, except the seat beside him was empty. Sarah had only wanted to take control of her own life. She never got the chance. But Adam went to the place they had promised. They would go together. And alone, he began the life she had chosen. This case is now closed. Thank you for staying until the end. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a like, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Ring the notification bell so you never miss a new case. Until we meet again, take care.